your right hand and be sworn, sir. Do you solemnly swear affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
Please be seated.
Good morning, Mr. Allison.
Good morning.
Could you please state your full name for the record?
My name is Mark Joseph Alberson.
Who is your current employer?
My current employer is MJ Electric.
And since when have you been employed by MJ Electric approximately?
February. End of February.
What is your position at MJ Electric, Mr. Allison?
My current position is project manager estimator.
Mr. Allison, who was your employer immediately prior to MJ Electric?
Sargent Electric.
And how long did you work at Sargent Electric?
I was with Sargent for 28 years.
28 years?
Yes, sir, 28 years.
And during your 28 years at Sargent, did you hold different positions?
Yes, I started from journeyman. Journeyman, I rose to foreman for 5-10 years. Then I went up to general foreman combination, and then area foreman, and my last position was project manager estimator for Sargent, probably for the last 10 years.
Are you a member of a union, Mr. Albertson?
Yes, I'm a member of Local 697.
Approximately how long have you been a member of the union?
I've been a member of Local 697 for 39 years.
Mr. Albertson, did you ever sign an employment agreement with Sargent Electric?
No, I never signed an agreement. I was hired by the union on referral.
So, are you subject to the collective bargaining agreement?
Yes, I am.
Are you subject to any non-compete or non-solicitation agreement with Sargent Electric?
No, I'm not. Like I said, a member of Local 697. I refer out of the union.
So, Mr. Albertson, you worked for Sargent Electric for many years, and you enjoyed working there for many years.
Yes, I do.
Mr. Albertson, were you thinking about quitting Sargent at the around the first of this year, long before you thought about going to work at MJ Electric?
Yes, I did. I had just gotten off a really extensive job. Took a lot of my energy, and at the first of the year, over the holidays, I just couldn't take it anymore. I heard rumors that the company was trying to get sold again, and I just had it. I was going to quit.
Do you recall an incident involving Fred Sargent, one of the founders of the company?
Yes, I received an email that Fred Sargent was retiring at the end of the year. My assumption was that he was being forced out.
And did that concern you?
Yes, it brought back memories of a good friend of mine, John Rush, who I felt got forced to retire by Beth Lawrence.
Who's Beth Lawrence?
Beth Lawrence is, I think she's the CEO. She's a top position at Sargent.
Maybe she was the CFO?
That could have been it. But she was his direct boss.
Mr. Albertson, do you recall having a conversation with Tom Frame about your desire to quit Sargent on or about January 3rd?
Yes, I did. I talked to Tom. He was my direct supervisor, and I had decided to quit over the Christmas and New Year holiday. I had discussions, obviously, with my wife, and she was behind me. I was just ready for a move.
So what was Mr. Frame's reaction to that?
Tom was not happy about it. He talked to me and said, that it was look much brighter. Just hanging there. We all get that feeling that you just get tired and want to change, and that he really needed my abilities as project manager, estimator, and he calmed me down, and I went back to work. I was satisfied. Someone listened to me.
Did he talk you out of quitting?
Yes, he did. He talked me out of quitting.
And at any time during that conversation, did Mr. Frame tell you that he was planning to make a change and leave Sargent, and you should go with him?
No, he did not. He just talked me out of my situation.
Okay. Now, Mr. Everson, before you spoke to Mr. Frame, you were a little angry at Sargent, right?
Yes, I was. The job I was on, it was called a group project. I had so many hours involved in it. I was putting in a good 12, 14 hours every day. Almost caused a divorce. And I was just put me out of my right mind. That's all the only way I can explain it. And I just...
Did talking to Mr. Frame help you get that off your chest?
Yes, it did. About another pair of ears, listening to the situation. I don't know, he just said the right words, and I felt comfortable with him.
And then were you able to go back and focus on your work after that?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Mr. Allison, how did you first learn, since Mr. Frame didn't tell you anything about it during that conversation, how did you first learn that Mr. Frame was leaving Sargent Electric?
I was working on, I had to get a bid out, and I was working on it, and Jim Mannis came into my room, and he was trying to get my attention, and then he finally went to my computer, clicked on my internet, and he showed me the email and said, look, and I saw that Tom had quit, and I was shocked.
Was this an email that was sent to basically all the employees?
Yes, it was. It was sent to everybody in the company. As far as I know, it had the majority of the names I recognized.
Right. So what was your reaction to seeing that email?
I was shocked. I was a little bit angry. We go a long ways back, and obviously I just, I was going to quit, and he talked me out of it, and I wasn't happy about it, but I was shocked. It's hard to leave a company after you've been there as long as we both have.
You've worked with Mr. Frame for many years.
Yes, I have.
You were surprised that he didn't tell you that he was getting ready to leave?
I was. All I can say is I thought we were better friends than that. But,
so, did you recall having a phone call with Mr. Frame the night that he resigned? You saw that email?
Yes, I did. Unfortunately, I had to go back to work then. At the time I saw the email, and I called him that night and just wanted to find out what happened. He told me some of the reasons he felt he had to leave and change, and whether I agreed or not, but I knew stay there much longer either. We talked about all the good times we had, different people, different jobs we were on. During conversation, obviously we talked about MJ Electric a little bit, and he said, if I had any, if I was thinking equipment, you could check the website. And if you're interested, there's a spot to apply.
Okay. Could you then sort of just tell the court what happened next and just briefly how you came to be employed at MJ Electric?
I did go on the website and I looked, and they had an opening for project manager estimator, and I was definitely in this town in June. So I put an application in for project manager estimator, and I was interviewed. And
how were you interviewed?
I was interviewed in the phone conference call. I had called one evening, can't remember exactly which day that was, and there were people from MJ Electric there, as well as being on this call, as well as Jim Wallace and Tom Frame, Tony Rockwell, and Bill Nagy were in that conference call.
Okay. This was a few days after February 10th, that initial phone call with Mr. Frame?
Yes, it was. I don't know exactly. The dust was settling. I did get on the website, I think, the following day. So it was probably maybe Thursday, Friday of that week where that conversation, conference call happened.
Okay. Now, you mentioned during that phone call with Mr. Frame that you told him that you were out of the two, you were thinking about quitting. If that was the case, why didn't you quit Sargent right away?
I wouldn't do it to anybody. I had estimates that I was involved in and I wanted to get out. My invitation, a good friend, Dave Dicer, asked me to do a bid for NIPSCO. We needed the work, so I tried to get that job. I was doing that estimate as well.
Yeah, let's break that down a little bit. You mentioned magnetation. You were working on something called magnetation?
Yes, magnetation was a series of bids that broke the construction project. It was a $350 million project, probably about $70 million in electrical. They broke it down in, I think there was 9 packages. It started from the 1st of January, and I got all of them out except the very last one. But we just kept on working package after that.
So you were working on magnetation in February?
Yes, magnetation, and a couple smaller ones I can't remember, and the NIPSCO job.
So the magnetation, exactly what are you doing when you're working on the magnetation estimate? Like, who can you describe sort of who you're working with and what that involves?
Started with probably a little bit in 2013 when I got back in the shop and started estimating again. The decision was made that we brought in Curtis Burns, Ryan Newell, Jay Price, and Ken Inesco, and I was going to work with them and teach them how to estimate. So, every estimate, each guy, some of their ones we all worked on at the same time, but some of the smaller ones would be I would assign someone with the estimate, and we would look at it.
So you're delegating work on magnification to these four gentlemen?
Yes.
And how would you go about doing that?
What we would do is we would obviously download the information, and in the information we have the construction prints, we have the bid forms. They had a pretty detailed bid form that we had to follow. We would set up the estimate to that bid form. So what we do is put it on the flash drives, and if two different people were working on the job, or three, we put the information so they had it in front of them. And we work on estimates. Estimates would be counting the number of light fixtures or the amount of conduit, measuring the amount of conduit.
Let's just focus on your use of flash drives in connection with this project. Can you describe sort of how many different flash drives you're using and how those are being used?
We had a lot of flash drives because of the different magnifications. We wanted to make sure we weren't, and prints being similar, we didn't want to, mix up and make a mix up. And the numbering system was for the prints. You can make a mistake really easy. So we made, there were 7 different estimates that all had names of the buildings they were in. So we would make a flash drive that would be for, say, building 1. And if there's 2 or more people working on it, we would make a flash drive for both of them to work on. So they had their own, so they had the information, whatever they needed to find. There were specs on that flash drive. It just would be too much paper to have to print out. Ease of estimate, that's where we had gotten.
So would you put information on flash drives and give it to Mr. Nisco?
Yes, I would.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
And Mr. Milwaukee?
Yes.
And Mr. Burns?
Yes.
And they would go and work on things?
Yes, whatever they were assigned, yes.
Okay. Now, you were also working on a NIPSCO project for Dave Dysart?
Dave Dysart, yes, I was.
Okay.
It was an estimate that only me and him could really deal with, because you had to have experience in NIPSCO goes to an outsourced company to let you price their jobs. So it's called a BRUNA, and I was the only one that had the experience with that type of estimate.
And so in connection with that project, you did exchange flash drives with Mr. Dysart?
Yes, I did.
And do you recall working on the blast furnace at U.S. Steel?
Number 7 blast furnace was coming up, and we were at the point, I was supposed to be talking to the manager, we were at the point that we had to get our breakdown of labor so that Ron Cleaner could say yay or nay whether he liked the way that it was broken down so that the job could be tracked. And I was in the process of getting Ryan Drinsky as well as Mike Buffalo. Mike had the experience of getting the computer's information to Ryan. Ryan had the experience of the Excel, how to break down the Excel worksheet.
That's helpful. And did you give Mike Buffalo a flash drive related to the blast furnace?
Yes, there was.
Did you ever get it back?
No, we didn't.
And did you give Ryan Drinsky a flash drive in connection with the blast furnace project?
Yes, I did.
Did you ever get it back?
No, we didn't.
Now, you weren't here, Mr. Elverson, but Sargent's forensic expert testified that 14 flash drives were connected to your Sargent laptop from February 3rd until the date he resigned. And he described that number of flash drives, 14, as strange. Is there anything strange about you having plugged in 14 flash drives in that time frame, Mr. Elverson?
I don't feel anything strange. That was our way of getting information so that everybody had the correct information. That was what we've been doing for quite a few years.
You were very busy in February of 2014, right?
Yes, I was. I was really new industrial estimator that was going at that time.
And in relation to when you quit, when did you stop working on these things?
February 19th was the last time that I would be dealing with any of these flash drives.
Were you working up until the day you quit?
Yes, I did.
Now, Mr. Allison, when you left Sargent, I think you said February 19th or thereabouts, what did you take with you?
I didn't take anything with me.
Did you take any of your personal belongings?
Well, other than my personal belongings.
And
that was the only thing I took.
Did your personal belongings include 2 personal flash drives?
Yes, they did.
And did one of those flash drives contain your anniversary photos?
Yes, they did.
And was the other flash drive a Kingston Data Traveler flash drive? Was that blank when you left?
Yes, it was. It was one.
Mr. Allison, as you sit here today, are you sure you don't have any flash drives that contain Sargent information?
I have no need for it, and I don't have it.
Mr. Allison, did you print and take hard copies of any documents containing Sargent information with you when you left?
No, I didn't take anything, any information, anything from Sargent Electric.
And do you have access to any Sargent information now that you're working at MJ Electric?
I have no access to anything from Sargent.
Let's just talk really briefly about, since you joined MJ Electric, have you received any type of training?
I have. I went to a 3-day orientation, let's call it. That would be the first week of March. They kind of started showing, or they did show us their method, how they want everything done, and the importance of it, because it's a stockholder held company and they have to have their documentation and proof on everything. And actually, that was the first time that I went up there again for 3 days for some more, because maybe I'm old and it takes longer for me to learn things. So they instructed me some more, and then they sent Jeff Dad down to basically run our estimating program so we could get it down correctly.
So, among those, the methods that you were trained on, did that include estimating?
No, it was their procedure. It was how they wanted to see the takeoff at the end. We used the AccuBid takeoff, and then they take hours and material and put it into another recap sheet. Not using it.
Fair enough. It was a political. They didn't teach you how to estimate, because you knew how to do that, right?
Exactly.
But did they teach you their estimating system, how to use it?
Yes, they taught me, this is their AccuBid program, this is where you document everything, and it was a matter of me going in their AccuBid system and finding the widgets, the names that I'm familiar with, so I could put it in takeoff.
Right, and does MJ have its own database of information that you now use?
Yes, they do.
Last question. Mr. Rosen, are you using any Sargent information in the course of your estimating work at MJ Electric?
No, I'm not.
My question.
Okay. Cross.
Mr. Rosen, just the water?
No, thank you.
That was it.
Good morning, Mr. Robinson.
Good morning.
I'm Jacqueline King. I represent Sargent Electric Company. I think we met at your deposition a few weeks ago.
Yes, ma'am.
I just have a few questions for you. I think you testified earlier that your last day at Sargent, you began at MJ Electric at the end of February. I actually have your first day of employment at MJ Electric as March 6th of 14. Does that sound about right to you?
You know, you're right, it is March 6th. I was doing consulting to them before that.
Okay, and so you just spoke with your counsel about an orientation that you went through, I think, up in Iron Mountain, right, with MJ?
Yes, ma'am.
2 sets of 3-day orientations, right?
Mm-hmm.
When was that orientation? Was it after the 6th?
No, one was at the first week of March, and the second one was probably 2 or 3 weeks later.
Okay, and
The second one wasn't an orientation. It was to learn more about the estimating program.
okay, and you said it was 2 or 3 weeks later than the 6th? So
Yes.
the 3rd week in March or thereabout?
Yes.
Okay, so you learned their estimating system about the 3rd week in March up in Iron Mountain, right?
Yes.
Okay, and MG didn't teach you how to estimate because you already knew how to do that. You had been at Sargent for 20 years, right?
That is correct.
And during that second orientation, I'll call it the 3rd week in March, that's when MJ let you, or gave you information about their database regarding estimating, right?
No, it was the procedure of how they wanted everything put into what area. You got a couple things to take off for an estimate. You've got to take off where you go through all the documents, the prints, and count everything up. Okay? Then you've got your estimating, putting the estimate together. That's where you add your equipment, you add your tools, you add, your safety stuff. And now you have we'll call it the estimate. And then you have the finalization where you decide how much profit, what percentage of profit you want to make on that job.
Okay, and I think you mentioned though earlier that MJ had a database relative to estimating, right?
Yes, they have, yes they do.
And you learned about that database during that 3rd week in March training?
No, I learned probably the second and third day when I was up in the first week of March, in the orientation.
But between, and I think your last day at Sargent, right, was February 19th?
Yes, it was.
And between February 19th, your last day at Sargent, and March 6th, your first day of employment with MJ, you did what you called consulting work for MJ, right?
Yes,
And that was estimating work, correct?
it was state office.
And that was before you had actually undergone that training up in Iron Mountain, right?
Yes.
Relative to the 3rd week in March that we're talking about their estimating systems, correct? So is that correct?
Yes, I took off, I counted everything for them.
Okay.
And then I gave them the information, they put the estimate together.
And you did that before you were even an MJ employee, correct?
Yes, on the consulting side.
Okay. Well, you were at Sargent, you were provided with a laptop, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And that laptop had all your bids and estimates on it?
Yes, it did.
And you talked with your counsel about 2, what you call personal USB devices that you took with you when you left Sargent, right?
Yes, I did.
And you plugged in those personal USB devices to the MJ computer system, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And and you can only find one of those devices, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And when you began employment with MJ, you sat in on bid reviews with MJ personnel, correct?
Wait, can you repeat that?
Sure. Since you've been an employee at MJ, you sat in on bid reviews, right?
Yes, I have.
To get your opinions regarding labor units, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson, thank you.
Just briefly, Mr. Robinson, I just want to make sure the record is clear. You, I believe, testified that you did some consulting for MJ before you were officially hired on March 6th. Was that after you quit Sargent?
Yes, it was.
And was that just the week right before you started working on MJ as a consultant?
Yes, it was.
And you mentioned that when you did this takeoff, estimating this takeoff during this time period, you counted things. Is that, I've heard the term quantity takeoff? Is that what that's called?
That is correct.
And when you do a quantity takeoff, did that require using like an MJ database or MJ process, or did you do that?
No, I did not. What I did was, on these prints, there was conduit runs, there were cable pulls, wire pulls, light fixtures, receptacles. I counted them, gave them a wrote random. Everybody does the takeoff different. I put all my information on each page of the print. And that's what I did.
Just write it on the print?
I wrote it right on the print of the quantities, and then I go back and I wrote it on a sheet of paper, and I gave it over to Jim Voss.
Right. And so the next step in that, what you refer to as the roll-up?
Yes, the next step is to, in this case, it was ported into the MJ AccuBid program.
Does that go into the pricing recap sheet eventually?
Eventually it was.
And then you take that and you send the proposal out? Or someone sends the proposal?
Well, in my case, on this particular one, I did the takeoff. I gave them the quantities and footages and all the widgets, and they put it in the program wherever I know where they do now, but at the time, it was done in Iron Mountain.
Now, last question. The device that you can't find, is that the device with your anniversary photos?
Yes, it is.
Thank you, sir. You may step down.
If Your Honor wants to take a 5-minute break before we go and move on to our forensic expert, or we can just pop forward. He's ready to go.
Do you need a break?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, bring him in. Defendant's call Michael Weil to the stand. So you want to raise your right hand and be sworn? You solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Please be seated.
Your Honor, before we started, one sort of housekeeping item. Mr. Weil prepared a supplemental report, which opposing counsel, Sargent, objecting to this time, and so we swap that out in the binder. It's now Trial Exhibit 77, so we'll get to it in the
There's no objection.
examination, but I just wanted to flag that. Good morning, Mr. Watt.
Good morning.
Could you please state the full name for the record?
Michael Charles Weil.
And Mr. Watt, who is your current employer?
Deloitte Financial Advisory Services.
And how long have you been employed there?
Approximately 1.5 years.
What is your position?
I am a director, and I lead I'm the national leader of the computer and cyber forensics practice for Deloitte.
Could you take a look at, I'd like to short circuit the backgrounds a little bit.
Do we
I don't think that,
stipulate that he's an expert? Is there any?
For purposes of the preliminary injunction hearing, yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so we can skip it all.
just skip it all? Okay.
He's stipulating that he's qualified to be an expert, would.
Okay.
You can go through some of it if you
Yeah, I'll
wish.
touch on a few. I'll hit the highlights here. So, Mr. Weil, let's just take a quick look at, if you could, I'll come up and get it for you. If I could say 70, please. Paul, thank you. Exhibit 70.
Yes.
At the top it says curriculum vitae of Michael C. Well. Do you see that?
I do.
And this is your CV.
It is.
And does this accurately reflect your background?
It does.
Just briefly, could you touch on sort of, you indicated that you've been at Deloitte, or you're at Deloitte, in your position there. This says you've been there since November 2012. Prior to that time, where were you employed?
I was with a company called T.R.O Consulting Group for approximately 9 years.
What did you do there?
I was the senior director and I conducted computer forensic examinations and investigations for clients throughout the country.
And how many of these examinations have you conducted?
It was well over 150 of those examinations.
And prior to that, where did you work? Prior to that?
I was with the Department of Defense Computer Forensics Lab in LakeCo, Maryland.
What did you do?
I was a computer forensic examiner and a section chief for the imaging and extraction section.
And how many forensic examinations did you conduct for the Department of Defense?
I conducted well over 100 computer forensic examinations.
Approximately how many times have you been qualified as a computer forensic expert in corporate?
On 6 occasions.
6. And approximately how many sort of employment, trade secrets, appropriation cases have you been involved in?
On 4 of those 6.
Mr. Weil, let's talk a little bit about your assignment in connection with this case. Who were you retained by in connection with this matter?
I was retained by the law firm of Shaw Fish and that was MJ Electric.
And what were you assigned to do?
One class was to look at the customer report and also to look at USB device attachment activity and to examine certain MJ Electric computer systems and to provide a report of findings and ultimately testify at deposition.
And have you done all those things?
I have.
And could you just let's take a quick look at Trial 69, one right before that.
I'm ready.
Okay. For a moment, 69.
Oh, right.
Mr. Weil, you recognize this document?
I do.
What is it?
It's my report of computer forensic analysis in connection with this matter.
And when did you submit this report?
June 2nd, 2014.
You turn to page 2 of 7 of your report, where you're going through the background section, the first section on page 2. Starting in the middle of page 2, there's a section called Summary of Findings. Could you just briefly summarize your findings, Mr. Weil?
Sure. As a tier report, looking at the USB device attachment activity, identified that there was 6 USB devices of 66 USB devices that were reported in a Reclamare report. And what that basically means is the Reclamare report identified 66 devices, which apparently was subsequently amended in the report to, I believe, 50. And we identified 6 of those same USB devices as being attached to an MJ Electric computer system. From those 6 devices attached to both Sargent and MJ Electric computer systems, 4 of those from our examination had no indication of file transfer or opening activity on MJ Electric computer systems. 2 of those 6 did have some type of file transfer activity, and From my estimation, there was some type of file transfer activity to the MJ Electric computer system during the time period of the connection of the USB device, but it's not clear what file transfer activity, what the source of that file transfer activity was. I also looked at the Ruckler report. They had an MRU list, or most recently used file list, in their report, and identified one of the files from the Ruckler report as being open on a Sargent system that was also present in one of the computer systems that we looked at from the MJ Electric side, and that was called aces.xlsx. There was also mention of ConNest file types or CST file extensions that we did not find any file extensions on the MJ Electric computer system by that name. And then finally, looking at the Ruckler report, there was two items, and one of them was that the USB storage device attachment activity that's referenced in the report just merely indicates that a USB device was attached to the Sargent computer system, and there's really not much more you can say based on the analysis similar to what I have referenced in the attachment page here. But also there was a conversation in the Ruckler report related to MRUs, or most recently used files, and going on to say that there was printing activity that could have happened from the files open in the MRU. There's files that could have been saved, and my opinion of the MRU list and the literature supports this is that the MRU only indicates that a file is open. Nothing more, nothing less. That's all that's going on in the MRU list. And any conclusions past a file being opened by a particular file name don't allow you to go any further than the conclusion that the file is open.
Right, and then, Mr. Weil, I think you're familiar because we've discussed it in your deposition. So, so subsequent to you issuing this report, Ruckler issued a supplemental report, and then depositions were taken. And Mr. Lionel has given testimony about an inference that can be drawn from looking at the MRU list and looking at C drives and E drives and drawing inferences from that. And I know you were asked about that issue at your deposition. So what are your thoughts on that inference?
Well, as I mentioned, the MRU only indicates that a file is open. It does not indicate by itself that a file is copied, that a file is printed. There's a tremendous amount of other evidence that's available on the computer system to examine to come to that conclusion. There are things like looking at the file itself to say it was printed. There are things like Microsoft Windows shortcut files that contain metadata that tell you the times and dates that files may have been copied to an external storage device. There's Windows Explorer history that allow you to look at this information as well. And there's a host of other areas you can look at to support the conclusions. So when we're talking about, and I believe the references were files being opened on a C drive and shortly thereafter being opened on an E drive, the only inference that you can draw from the MRU list alone is that a file by the same name was open. There's no way to say that that file name on the E drive was caused to be there by the MRU list alone by a copy activity, by a saving activity, or anything else. There's, as I mentioned, a number of other areas you need to look at to come to that conclusion.
Right. So, you say, you can't just look at the MRU list, but what if you're comparing it to, a list that says devices were attached at that same time? Could you then draw the inference? Do you think that's a good inference to draw?
I do not, because all the MRU is saying is the file was open. And even if you have the USB device report that says a USB device was attached, what you can say is the file from the E drive by whatever name was opened from a certain USB device. That's where you go. But as you can see, as you add more information sources to the examination, we can gather more information about what's going on with the particular file in question.
Right. And one's going to speculate about looking at MRU lists and reference to C drives and E drives. Is there anything else that someone might speculate about too, about the movement of information to from a hard drive to an external device?
I don't. People are welcome to whatever they want to say, but I don't believe that there's any proper inference other than to say that the file is open.
So we're going to sort of break down the various aspects of your analysis a bit. But I guess I would first like to talk about, I guess the last part of your opinions and findings, just to briefly summarize. You recall preparing a supplemental report regarding Paul Sheen's personal hard drive?
I did.
And you made certain findings regarding that?
I did.
We'll come back to that and take a deeper dive into your supplemental report towards the end. Can you just describe sort of, I think this is found on page 3 of your report, there's a section called data exam. Could you just describe the process that you and your staff undertook?
Sure. My team made forensic images of the computer systems and hard drives listed on page 3 in the data exam section, just by attaching read-only devices so that the hard drive could not be written to by us, and then went through and made what's called a bit stream image, which is basically means we start at the beginning of the drive, go to the end of the drive, and collect every bit of information that's available on that particular hard drive. And we verify that the data that was read from the original device is the same as what we've written into our image file. And in that way, we can conduct an examination of the image file, not on the original evidence, and in that way, be able to protect the original evidence from any alterations during the examination. We also received a USB thumb drive on May 19th from Mr. Alberson, and we conducted a similar imaging process as I just described, and then we also relied upon the LakeCo report. Right.
So you analyzed the laptop computers referenced in this chart on page 3, and you mentioned 2 devices there, I think, Mr. Alberson's flash drive, and there was an external hard drive from Mr. Voss.
Correct.
And are these 2 of the 6 devices that you alluded to earlier?
Yes.
Okay. Now, with respect to so you got these 2 devices, 2 of the 6, and you analyzed those. What about with respect to the 4 other devices? What kind of analysis do you conduct with respect to the 4 other devices that showed up as having connections that can't be recovered?
Well, those 4 other devices, we looked at the computer systems that those devices were attached to, the NJ Electric computer systems that those 4 devices were attached to, and we examined those computer systems with respect to what was going on those computer systems within the time frame of the attachment of the USB storage device. And we did that to gain an understanding of what activity was going on in the computer. Were there files being used on the USB device? Or from the USB device? Was there potential file copy activity during the time frame of the attachment? And just trying to understand what was going on in general in the computer system.
Okay. And did you interview these individuals as well?
I did not.
Why not?
In these, most of my experience, from the examination going back to my time in the government, I'm looking at the computer evidence. That's the expertise that is called upon for me. And I'm looking at the computer data to see what's there. And I report back what information I'm seeing and in my analysis. And there's other individuals back in the government. It would be a criminal investigator who would conduct interviews if they wanted me to help them with the interview. I would certainly help them. And in the civil arena, it's reporting back to council what we found. And again, if they'd like us to help with an interview, we're happy to. But mostly we're being hired for our expertise related to computer systems.
Okay, so turning to page 4 then of your report, you discussed, it's entitled Reclamare USB Storage Device Attachment Analysis. Is that the starting point for the analysis as well?
Yes.
And could you just explain sort of how that comparison process works? And I think it might be helpful to reference your Appendix A to your report, which is right after page 7.
Yeah, so looking at Appendix A would be very helpful here.
It's right after page 7 of the report, Your Honor, so it's not great thing.
So what we looked at was from each of the computer systems, MJE electric computer systems, we can identify the USB devices that are attached to those computer systems, and that's what you'll see in the first 3 columns of this report. And then from there, we know in the intervening columns, those are the MJ electric computer systems that the USB devices are attached to. And the dates and times of the first connection, which is date first connected, or DFC, and date last connected, or DLC. And using that as a starting point, if we go to page 2 of the appendix, you see a heading under the columns called Sargent devices. And when we compare the serial numbers in the 3rd column that we have to what's in the Reclamare report, we can identify, and in this case it's in the gray color, what devices were attached to both a Sargent computer system and an MJ electric computer system based on their serial number. And from this report, we also know then what dates Reclamare was reporting for their attachment of the devices to a Sargent computer system. And then the final 3 columns indicate the 2 devices that we actually received, so that we can get a nice view of what's going on with the USB device attachment, where there's correlation to between the Sargent systems and the MJ electric systems, and the dates and times of these activities. Okay. What this ultimately shows us is from when I first looked at this, the 66, or what I thought to be the 66 USB devices that were attached to the Sargent systems. This indicates the 6 devices that were also attached to a Sargent, a MJ electric computer system.
Let's just follow up what you said. What you thought to be 66, I think Mr. Lionel sort of cleaned this up in his original report. He said 66, and in his supplemental report, he referred to 50 unique devices. So can you just explain your thinking on that?
Yeah, from my understanding, in the supplemental Reclamare report, there was just some issue with looking at devices that were attached to 2 computer systems. That's my understanding. So there may have been 50 total devices, and I guess doing the math, 16 times where there's the same device attached to more than one Sargent computer system.
Right. And so when you're looking at the MJ systems, and thinking in your report on page 3, it says, listing all of the 38 USB storage devices attached to MJ computer system. Are you picking up all the USB devices that have been connected to the MJ computers?
Yes.
And of those 38 devices that you're showing as having been attached to MJ computers, there are 6 Sargent devices that had been sometime connected to Sargent computers, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk then a little bit more about the Reclamare report. You indicated sort of your summary of your findings for the Reclamare report. On page 7, kind of elaborate on page 7 of your report, and I guess if you could just explain, this section of your report.
Sure, as I was mentioning in the summary section, the Reclamare report basically says two things. One, that USB devices were attached at certain points in time to Sargent computer systems. And there was no examination of the Reclamare report past the USB device attachment and the MRU list to understand what actions were taken with files, what files may have been opened and used in a certain time frame, what the metadata around these files were. So it's not clear what, if any, files were alleged to be taken at that point. And then the MRU list, as I quote here from the Reclamare report, there was a conclusion that from the MRU list that when these files are opened, the document can be printed or the file can be saved to an external USB device, end quote. And that's true. That's one of many possibilities that can happen when a file is opened. As I state here, there's a number of other situations that occur. The file could be opened and closed with no changes to the file. The file could be opened and saved to the Sargent network. The file could be opened and saved to the Sargent computer system. The file could be opened and sent via email to whatever recipients there might be requested, and a number of other methods to get the files to do something with the files. So while the Reclamare report certainly points out a few possibilities, it doesn't go into the full detail of a number of other possibilities that may be the result of the MRU. But it doesn't change the fact that all that most recently used is telling us is that a file is open.
You see here there was no mention in the Reclamare report of actions taken by the users with the USB storage devices on the computer. Is it your opinion that the Reclamare report also doesn't demonstrate that anything was taken?
From what I can see and what I can make of this, I do not see that.
Okay. And do you think that the Reclamare report is inconclusive about the copying of information?
I don't believe it states anything about the copying activity.
Okay. I guess, with that being said, the Reclamare report is there. It says what it says. Why would you conduct further forensic analysis at that point?
Why not go after?
Right.
What we're looking to do there is to help understand what is the line of the data. When I look at these cases, whether it was a counterintelligence case for the Department of Defense and looking at spies conducting espionage and trying to steal state secrets, or cases like this where they're trying to steal intellectual property, where there's allegations of that, we're looking to trace the line of the data. The data has to move through some communications channel. In this particular case, what we have to go on is the allegations of the plaintiff, which to me seems to say that, or does say that they believe that USB devices...
I object to this point. He was asked at his deposition whether or not he had read any of these pleadings, and he said no. So this strikes me as not only beyond the scope of his report, but beyond the scope of what he said he did in this case.
I don't think you had to read the pleadings to know what this case is about. Mr. Wiley gets involved in tracing these rich cases all the time, and he knows why we're here, Your Honor.
Agree overruled.
Thank you.
So as I was saying, we're looking at the line of the data moving through the computer systems and the data storage devices, using the USB storage devices as a starting point. We then look at which of these devices were connected to an MJ electric computer system to see where does this line go to for these USB devices that have been attached. We find, in this case, the 6 USB devices that are attached, and from there we dig further into those 6 USB devices, because presumably that's going to be the method and the means that the files or data are taken. And we dig further into one, identifying that these USB devices are available, because that's certainly going to be the best evidence, is that here's the device, and it was connected, and here's the data that was actually on the device. In the absence of that, it happens in many of these cases, the devices are not available for whatever reason, and we look at the computer system that the device was attached to see what's going on in the computer system to further get an understanding of what the data flow is. Because in absence of the device that's carrying files, or presumably carrying files or data, we can look at the computer system then to see what's going on, to understand, was there files used, were there files open, was there deletion activity, and just get a better understanding and try to understand what is the extent of the issue here.
Thank you, Mr. Long. Let's turn to page 4 of your report. And I want to focus on the analysis of the two of the 6 devices that were recovered, and then the analysis that you undertook with respect to those devices. So first, could you explain your analysis of the Mark Alderson personal flash drive?
Looking at Mr. Alderson's USB storage device, we found that all but 2 of the files were in a deleted state. And the 2 files that were not deleted, so they were actual files that you could open and access, they were 2 files that were consistent with what's called the auto-link feature. So when you put a CD-ROM or a USB device into a Windows computer, Windows automatically tries to help you, in most cases, to automatically run what's on that particular device. In doing so, the Microsoft operating system places 2 files onto the device and called desktop.ini and ready-boost-perf-test.tmp. And when this auto run occurs, it's going through and looking at all the data on the USB device or the CD, and we would expect to see that there are last access dates and times that are updated on the USB device. In this case, we didn't find any because the last access date and time activity was on February 3, 2014. So then moving back a little bit, we looked at the activity of the attachment of the Alderson device to the MJ electric computer system on April 7, 2014, looking to see was the MJ electric computer system the cause of this deletion activity. And we did not see any programs or files or data consistent with running a deletion or wiping program on April 7th when the device was connected to an MJ electric computer system. And during that connection as well, we would expect to see that there are last access dates and times that are updated for any of the files. Since we found that the auto run ran, which would look at all the files or try to look at all the files on the device, and none of the last access dates and times were open, since we looked at the MJ electric computer system and saw that there was no indication of deletion activity of the USB device, to me it's more likely than not that the files were deleted on February 3rd, 2014. And on that date, the USB device was attached to a Sargent computer system.
So, sort of in layman's terms, would your opinion be that that flash drive was effectively blank since dating back to February 3rd?
Yes.
Okay, so that's one of the 6. So the second one I'd like to focus on, the second device in question. Another one that you were able to recover and analyze the Jim Voss WD My Passport 0810 external hard drive. Could you discuss that briefly?
Sure. We looked at the Voss external hard drive and we looked at all the files on that particular device and found that they were appeared to be personal in nature and were primarily home videos and pictures on the external hard drive.
Okay. You obviously reviewed the Reclamare report, right, Mr. Watt?
I did.
And is this WD My Passport device the same 1 terabyte device that's referenced in the Reclamare report that's having capacity for 1,000 pickup loads of paper?
It is.
but it only had Mr. Voss's personal information on there, and that's your conclusion?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so that's 2 of 6. Now let's talk about you obviously described the analysis that you undertook with respect to the other 4 devices that could not be recovered for whatever reason. I guess before we get into the nitty-gritty of those, let's do the easier part of this. At the end of this section, so it's middle of page 5 until on to page 6. Actually, the last bullet point of that section pertains to Thomas Frame, Kit Cavella, Jeff Schumann, and James Voss Computer Systems. I don't believe this relates to any of those other 4 devices, but could you just explain what the takeaway is from that bullet point?
I'm sorry.
Okay, what's the takeaway from that last bullet point about Thomas Frame, Kit Cavella, Jeff Schumann, and James Voss? Page 6 and 7. The last bullet point on page 6 and 7.
The takeaway there is that there was, first of all, there was no USB devices that were attached that were also on the Sargent system were attached to the MJ Electric. So there was, as I was talking earlier about the line from the Sargent computer systems to the MJ Electric, for these folks, this line does not exist, with the exception of Mr. Voss, where Mr. Voss does have the one external hard drive that has what appears to be personal information on there. So there was nothing really to look at. There was no most recently use, so kind of taking an extra step to say, were there other files on there that they got by somebody needs, looking at the most recently used lists from the Reclamer report, looking to see if there's any file name matches. So in other words, taking the MRU list from Sargent systems and looking at, are any of these file names present on the MJ Electric systems? And the answer was no, there's none of these files from the MRU list. And from that, we infer that, at least from these files, that there's indication were being used by the individuals at Sargent. Those same files do not appear to be used by the 4 individuals in this last bullet.
Let me just interrupt you for a second, because I want to make sure that we really focus on this point. In terms of the MRU list, right? You cross-reference the MRU list in the Reclamer report. There was only one hit, so to speak, right, on the MJ computer systems?
That's correct.
And what was that file called?
ACES.XLSX.
ACES is the only file that matched up on the MRU list. Okay, let's then take a step back to the analysis with respect to the 4 unrecovered devices. I'd actually like to focus first on the bullet point that says the second bullet point, the last bullet point on page 5 of 7, says James Simmons MJE Computer Systems. See that?
I do.
So could you describe what your analysis reflects here?
Sure. The Appendix A indicates that there was a device that was attached to both the Sargent computer system and MJE computer system on April 16, 2014. And if we turn our attention around to Appendix C of the report, we should have 8 pages.
Appendix C, that's the Lloyd, and then Simmons, James laptop at the top left, and it's 8 pages, so. Your Honor, are you,
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
So what we wanted to do was look at what was occurring on the computer system during the time frame of that particular USB device attachment to the Simmons computer system. And what we have listed here, I'm just very brief in the Appendix B through D that I speak about will have the same column headers. First thing is the file name, that's simply the file name. The extension is the file extension, so that last part of the file name after the dot that typically indicates what type of file it is. A description which tells us is this a file, is it deleted, some other metadata about the file. The full path, so the location of this particular file on the computer system created date, which is the date and time, generally speaking, that the file is first saved to the computer system. Last access, which is typically the last time the file was used by the user or the computer system. The last modified, which is generally speaking the last date and time that something changed about that file. The entry modified date or the entry mod date, as the header is here, there's a lot of metadata about the file that's going on that's being tracked by the operating system and the file system. So this is just the date and time that something changed. So maybe a permission change, maybe a line in the file change, some change to the file. And the final piece is the file size in bytes. And so what we looked at was, we looked at the time frame on April 16th, 2014, when the device was attached to Simmons. And this is sorted by the full path. And so, for example, on the first page, just looking at the full path, I look at this and see that there's some type of Google Earth activity going on, some Microsoft Windows temporary activity going on, page 2 has more Google Earth, page 3, more Google Earth, page 4, more Google Earth, page 5, more Google Earth, and some cryptography issues going on, probably in terms of authentication to the MJ Electric computer system. That continues on to page 6. And then page 7, we start to see about the roll-down something called D-Users James.Simmons Desktop Monosol E1.1.pdf. And this is where I saw that there was some indication of file copy activity during the time frame of the device attachment. And so here, what I'm keying in on is the created date and time is April 16, 2014 at 18:50:01, which is universal coordinated time and not local time. At that time of year, you subtract 5 hours to get to the local time. But then if you look at the last modified column, you see that the date is July 24, 2013 at about 11 a.m. And the question that I'm commonly asked by counsel is, how is the file modified before it's created? And the short answer to that is that, well, the created date and time just means, basically, as I mentioned, the date and time the file is first saved to this particular storage device. And what happens when a file is copied in Windows is this last modified date and time is maintained. So if I have a file on the network or a USB device or other location, and I just drag the file over to copy it, or do one of the many ways that you can copy files, that last modified date from the source of the file, the source location gets maintained when it gets to the destination of the file, or to the destination location.
So
we created it.
So I just have to make sure I understand this. So we're looking at, I think this is the file name called, is it E1.1 PDF?
It is.
And the date on that, if you go to the last modified column, it says 7/24/2013.
Yes.
So would that be indicative of when that file was created?
Not necessarily, but we need the last time that something about that file changed.
Oh,
so what this tells me is, okay, that file was copied to this device, or to this Simmons computer system on April 16th, 2014.
Right. And so is there a set of files on here that fall in that same category that you think were copied onto the Simmons system? Which one?
I don't recall the number. It was 22,
I think it's 24. That's right. It's not a memory test. If you could turn to Exhibit 71, just take a quick look. Fortunately, it's really close.
Yes.
These are 24 files that are all in that category. I didn't copy.
These look like the files that were copied during that time frame.
Right. Okay, so there is another set of files. I'm turning back to Appendix C that are in this Monosol directory that you come to a different conclusion about, right?
That's right. And a good example is, let's see here.
I'm talking about one of those winder.
Yes. When we go down to, I believe it's the ninth row, where the last part of the file says monosol line 7, winder.xls, we see that there's a created time of,
So we're on page 7 of 8 of appendix C.
that's correct.
In the middle of the page, there's a file called monosol line 7 winder.xls, for example, and a couple other winder documents.
That's correct.
Okay.
And so we see the created date and time there is April 16, 2014, about 7:08. And the last modified is now on 4/17/2014. And based on the information that we were looking at in this time frame on April 16th, it's not clear to me whether the file was copied to this location, whether it was first saved for the first time at this location on April 16th, because its created date and time definitely does not line up with some of these other copy activities at 1850, 01, 03, 04. So that's one that I cannot conclude was copied during the time frame.
Was not copied from the flash drive that was connected at that time.
That's correct.
Okay, if you could turn to, in your binder, exhibits 79 through, and we can do these all sort of collectively, 83. Take a quick look at those, I think you've seen those before. The first one, 79, is you can see at the top right-hand corner, sort of in the headers, is estimate file, monosol line 14 winder.xls.
Yes.
And there's a similar files for line 6 winder, 7 winder, 8 winder. And then exhibit 83 is it says Schneider Electric quote. Would you, are these the files that fall in that category of not having been copied from the device?
That's correct.
Now, in terms of this conclusion about some copying activity on the Sims, is this the only, in your course of your analysis about these other systems, is this the only indication of copying activity?
In this time period, yes.
Well, and I'm talking about just with respect to the other systems that you analyze. Is there any other, and other appendices, if we were to look at D, E, and, let's see, we're on C, so B, D, and E?
There was maybe one other instance of potential file copy activity.
Oh, yeah, okay, so which one was that? All right, that's your memory, and I think it's in your, maybe it's in my report.
I just want to make sure I'm stating it correctly. I believe that was for Mr. Manis.
Okay. And is this the reference to a file named copy of Crown Point Spare phone list?
Yes.
So this is on page 6 of 7, the first full bullet point. And we'll talk about the Manis computer system momentarily. But I do want to just, while we're on the topic of copy activity, this is the only other example, right?
Yes.
And if you could turn to, I'm going to make switch binders, unfortunately. We're going to look at exhibit number 141. Okay. Wait for Robert to get this. Probably 141 is a one-pager.
Okay, I got it.
Okay, Mr. Wilder, you recognize this is the file references copy of Crown Point Sphere Fullness.xlsx.
Yes.
in your report, in the last sentence of that bullet point, says the file appeared to contain a listing of model numbers and network addresses with reference to Jeff Dam. Right.
Yes.
Okay, so moving on then, I want to talk about on page 5 of 7 of your report, actually, that first bullet point is the section about the follow-up analysis on the computer systems. Could you describe the analysis on the Mark Albertson MJ computer system?
Sure. And you flip to appendix B.
We've covered now the third of the 6 devices having discussed Mr. Simmons. So now we're on to the 4th and 5th devices in this section.
And so here doing a similar time frame analysis on the Albertson computer system, MJ computer system, during the time frame of the USB device attachment, using the files that we found and looking at these files, no longer indicative of file copy or use during the time frame of the USB device attachment.
Okay, and what conclusions are you drawing here with respect to the MRE list?
That there was no references from the Ruppler MRE list to the files on the Albertson MJ electric computer system.
Right, so if we were to turn to Appendix B, that relates to the Albertson MJ computer system. What, just generally speaking, what would be reflected on Appendix B then, if there's no evidence of copy activity?
This is just some of the things that were going on in the computer system during the time frame of the device attachment. I believe this was related to the device's attachment.
But there would be no copying from the device to the computer system. That's just activity, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's 5 out of 6. Now let's talk about Manus. Okay, so that's 4 out of 6. Let's talk about Manus computer system. And now I'm at the first bullet point, back to the master touchiness of the complex corresponding list. But again, page 6 of 7, first full bullet point, James Madison MJ computer system. I'm on the body report.
What page?
Sorry, page 6 of 7 in the body of the report.
Okay.
If you're on James Madison. So, Mr. Locke, can you describe your conclusions here?
For those indications of file being saved to location on the Manus profile desktop location about 20 minutes after the USB device was attached to the Manus MJ electric computer system.
Okay. And so no evidence of any copying activity with respect to this device?
No.
Okay. Now let's move down the page to the Paul Schumann MJ computer system. So we've covered 5 of the 6 devices. Now, the sixth device in question is a flash drive, not to be confused with the personal hard drive of Mr. Schumann, which we're going to discuss in a minute, right? So, can you describe your conclusion here?
Sure. This is very, in some respects, similar to the Simmons, the Albertson activity. Although, if you were to look at Appendix E, there are 1,716 files, but those files were related to some type of antivirus malware installation that was going on in the computer system during the time frame. But absent the installation of this malware and antivirus program, there was no indication of file copy or saving of any data other than the saving of the malware files.
Okay. Now, moving on to the next section of your report, at the bottom of page 6, there's a section called Other Activity Examined touched on this in your summary of your findings, but with respect to CST files, can you describe what analysis was performed and what conclusions you came to?
As I saw in the Reclamare report, there was two CONAS files that were referenced. There's apparently some type of estimating program. And there was two file names that were referenced. And we didn't find any indication of either of those two file names from the Reclamare report on any of the MJ Electric computer systems that we looked at. And furthermore, we took a step further and looked at were there any files with the CST file extension, and we found no files on any of the MJ Electric computer systems that we looked at that had a CST file extension, which would be consistent with the CONAS program.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to turn now to Trial Exhibit 77, which is your supplemental report dated June 29, 2014. Let me know when you're there.
I'm with you.
You ready, Your Honor?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Mr. Weil, could you just sort of describe your analysis here and your conclusions?
Sure. My understanding was that there was a external USB hard drive that Paul Schumann had identified, apparently at deposition, that he was using. We obtained the external hard drive on June 18, 2014, and looked at the device serial number that was available for this external hard drive. And the first thing that we did was look at the Reclamare report, and we did not identify that the serial number for the external hard drive was present anywhere in the Reclamare report, and for the Seagate device. And furthermore, we looked to see perhaps there was some mistake in terms of the device name or the device model. So we looked solely for the device serial number anywhere in the Reclamare report, and we did not identify that the device serial number for the Schumann external hard drive was present in the Reclamare report.
Let me cut you up there. So this device wasn't referenced in the Reclamare report, is that what you're saying as well?
That's correct.
And is that why you didn't previously analyze this device?
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, that would be...
And because we didn't ask
no line.
Right.
That would be the first thing, but as I mentioned, we're keying in on what is attached to what Reclamare is indicating as being attached to an MJ Electric computer system, and what we're seeing matches on the MJ Electric computer system. So this was a device that we didn't have any reason to believe had any line or connection back to the Sargent computer systems.
I think you may have misspoke. Did you mean to say what Reclamare indicated had been attached to a Sargent computer system?
I would imagine that's probably what I meant to say.
Okay. Okay, so carry on. So you first determined that this Paul Schumann's personal hard drive was not identified in the Reclamare report. What did you do next?
So understanding the device of issue, we wanted to identify had any files been used on the device. So in the second bullet point at the bottom in the summary findings section on page 2 of 3 of the supplemental report, I go into a discussion on Microsoft Windows shortcut files. And as I mentioned previously, these files will indicate that files have been opened from the hard drive, from external devices, from the network. And what's interesting from an evidentiary perspective about these particular files is they contain metadata about the file that's being opened. And one of the very important things to look at in this case is it records, as I go into detail on page 3 in the footnote, something that's called the volume serial number. So in addition to this physical serial number that the USB devices have, they also have what's called a volume serial number. And this volume serial number is just electronically written onto into the device. And so Microsoft records when you open up the volume serial number of a file that you open up. So we looked at the Schumann MJ Electric computer system, looked for this volume serial number, didn't didn't find it, which means that it was not a file by that, from that volume serial number, which correlates to the external hard drive we were looking at to show that there was any files open. Furthermore, we looked at the most recently used list to see was there any matches of file names between the MRU list within the MGM electric computer system and the Seagate drive. We found none, which further supports that no files were being opened or used on the Seagate device from the MGM electric computer system. Furthermore, we looked at a similar analysis of the Recliner MRU list and didn't find any of the file names referenced on the Schumann MRU list is indicated by Recliner on the Paul Schumann MJ electric computer system. And we looked then at what occurred directly on this hard drive after March 3rd, which is the date and time the device was attached to an MJ electric computer system, what occurred on March 3rd and after. And there was activity listed in Appendix A, which is just directly behind the report here, 84 files that had something going on with them during this time frame. And in looking at all these files, there were either personal pictures, I believe, a cheerleading competition, if I recall correctly, and there was an Excel file, daily WROK list 5-10-13.xlsx that appeared to be personal in nature. There was some diary of some sort that looked to me. So in essence, all of these files either appear to be personal, or if we go to the last page of the appendix, the last couple of entries here, tracking.log, point manager, the link database, those are system-related activity. So the activity on this device from March 3rd, 2014 forward was all personal in nature, or it was some type of system activity.
So just to sort of wrap up my questioning here, now, Mr. Weil, at the end of the day, the Recliner report only indicates that certain devices were connected and attempts to draw inferences about copying activity. Do you agree with that? That's sort of one of your conclusions?
Yes.
Any copying activity from the devices that were connected to both sets of computers is limited to those certain Monosol-related files and the spare phone list, with Jeff Dad's name on it?
Yes.
There's only one match on the MRU list, and that's the ACES.XLSX file from Mr. Manus's system.
Correct.
Mr. Weil, based on your experience in these types of cases, are these the telltale signs of misappropriation by former employees?
This doesn't look like it. I would expect to see a lot more evidence of files being used, of being shown, a lot more files that have some type of technical nature to them, which I wouldn't know anything about, but that I could talk about how they were used and opened, and would see a lot more from the Sargent side of things in terms of the files that are being opened, being used on external devices, and seeing those types of files shown to us so that we can look for them to see if those files are on MJ electric computer systems.
Thank you, Mr. Weil.
Now we can take 5, 10 minutes. 10 minutes? Okay.